Hello, friends. This is Eric, the Mind Control Guy. How's everybody doing tonight? It's November 2nd, somewhere between 2:30 and 3 o'clock in the morning. Once again, we're talking about these dirt bags, M.I.B S. In my first video I did about the M.I.B S, I told my story. For many years, I didn't know why the M.I.B felt the need to threaten John Glenn back when he was a U.S. Senator in the early mid-90s. A source that I trust recently found out for me. This individual found out for me what that was all about. Now, as I said in that first video, what I remember I saw. There's no way I could possibly be there, but I saw it. And the way I did it, what I remember seeing is when the three M.I.B that were sitting there at the table, kind of like going, looking at John Glenn, and John Young, another astronaut who worked at NASA at the time, was kind of sitting at the table like this. And they handed John Glenn these manila envelope with papers in it. And I remember John Glenn going, looked at John Young, and John Glenn goes, and you're going along with this? And John Young goes, Mike, there ain't nothing I can do. My hands are tied. And then when the M.I.B looked at John Glenn and said, now, Senator Glenn, we really need your approval on this. And if you don't decide to cooperate well, we'd really hate to see you end up in a car crash or a plane crash or have an early stroke or heart attack, so we really need your approval. With great reluctancy, John Glenn signed whatever it was these guys wanted signed, and he turned around and walked out of the room. Well, recently, I found out what that was. The source that I trust found out what that was. They got all kinds of clearance levels. Now, I've argued back and forth about on YouTube these guys that say they have these really high clearance levels or had high clearance levels. Now, I don't doubt that. There's a lot of people out there that just look as average as anybody else, that have been in government work, been in military work, some pretty dark stuff. And there's all kinds of clearance levels. Secret, top secret, above top secret, eyes only need to know, brick bout 01, above the president's pay grade. And yeah, I've gotten into it with these guys, say, oh no, the president knows all. No, they don't. There's people within the high echelons that they will decide what the president needs to know. The president doesn't need to know everything. And even though people might have the highest clearances available, sometimes it's in a compartmentalized situation that it don't matter if you have the highest clearance there is. In certain situations, if you don't need to know, then somebody else decided you don't need to know. Just because you have a high clearance doesn't mean you're going to be allowed to know everything. What was it that they threatened John Glenn with? Well, apparently these M.I.B guys, they were getting into all kinds of ultra secret stuff that's been kept secret so well. You know, only a handful of people were allowed to know this. Only a handful of people were allowed to know this. Different things. Well, they had been doing this apparently for quite some time, but they wanted the formalities. Now, the highest clearances I've ever heard about, Cosmic. I've heard of Keystone, Majestic, but some of the folks have it, Area 51, Dulce, any of these other places, dealing with stuff that's so way out, people would choose not to believe it. Like Brick Battle 1, there's things that say, hey, if you don't have a need to know, you're not going to be allowed to know. So who really knows what the extreme highest clearances are? Some guy says, I know I had the highest clearance, I know of the highest clearances. What about if there's clearances above that that you don't know about? That's the thing about this kind of stuff. These clearance levels, this kind of clearance, that kind of clearance. And they take it pretty seriously. You're allowed to know something. You better not talk. I mean, these people that get into this work, they're monitored when they don't even know they're being monitored. And you go in with an understanding. You don't talk. This is extremely sensitive, and I don't know who makes those decisions, but these things are extremely sensitive. Well, apparently these M.I.B, they'd been doing this all along, that they wanted to dot the I's and cross the T's. They wanted the formalities. So they wanted John Glenn, who was a senator at this time, back in the early mid-90s. I don't know what all kinds of prestige that Senator Glenn had at that time. But anyway, he, I guess, had some clout, along with John Young at NASA had clout. And they wanted John Glenn to approve these papers, to sign off on it, that they could be allowed to access anything at any time, anywhere, any place. So I don't know what kind of security clearance it would have given these guys. Above the Joint Chiefs, above the head of the Central Intelligence Agency, the NSA, above uh, the commander of the Groom Lake Test Facility, above the commander of Wright-Patterson, above the commander of AUTEC, Atlantic Undersea Testing Evaluation Center, basically the Navy's Area 51. What kind of clearance, ink on a piece of plastic, would these guys have got? I mean, the highest one I ever heard about was 38 Rhyolite, a guy named Phil Schneider, who was one of the 3 survivors of the Dulce War that happened in '79. Now, his reputation has been tarnished and trashed up one side and down the other. As far as I'm concerned, he was tarnished by the professionals, and that's the best thing to do. When you get someone who comes out of obscurity and starts telling about what happened, the first thing they got to do is smear him. People say, oh, yeah, we knew this guy way back when, and he lied about this, he lied about that, blah, blah, blah. These clowns can say whatever they want, but as soon as somebody just starts getting ultra tarnished like that, like I imagine there's people out there tarnishing me, I could give a rat's ass less. The first thing they got to do is smear the guy. They got to tarnish the guy. They got to trash the guy. They say, well, where's your evidence? Well, maybe I don't have the evidence. Maybe the evidence doesn't exist. Maybe the evidence has been rabbit holed, vaulted somewhere where ain't nobody going to get access to it. And these guys want to say, well, what's your real name? What's this? What's that? Why in the hell do you want to know? So you can show up and silence me? You want to silence this man? You want to silence that man? This lady? That lady? A lot of people who have come forward with some very obscure stuff have been silenced. The ones that come out of obscurity and they start making stuff up, a lot of times they don't even touch those people because they're doing them a service by spreading disinformation. But those like Phil Schneider, those like myself, and countless others, sometimes we always don't have, the Rodney King video. We don't have all this evidence. And a lot of these people who always say, where's the evidence, blah, blah, blah. Sometimes when the evidence does manifest, what's the first words out of their mouth? Fake, fake. You know, he tells something, jackass. Not everything is fake. Not every video is fake. Not every picture is fake. Not every document's fake. Some people have lost their lives trying to preserve the physical evidence. Some people have been attacked, have their families attacked, have had their families killed, and they were allowed to live. Whoever these individuals are, they mean business and they're not effing around. So that's how dark this stuff is. This is how dark this stuff is. It blows the mind. There was a movie that came out in 2018 last year. This is right now as I'm talking. This is 2 days after Halloween 2019, and I stumbled onto this video. It was called Alien Code. I bought the movie. I watched it. Very obscure movie. Have never had it. Never heard of it before. $9-10 off Amazon. That movie was like, whoa. There was a couple things that made me jerk to life. But with my background, I'm like, what the hell did that just trigger? And for whatever reason, those that made the movie thought they had to drop the F-bomb every other time he turned around, which there was no reason for that. It was a very obscure, I would dare say, probably a fairly low budget movie. But they said some serious things in there that really start coming around at the end of the movie. Serious messages. And yes, this movie depicts M.I.B. A different kind of M.I.B. than what one saw in The Shadow Men or The Silencers, as I said on a previous video. They show M.I.B. These M.I.B. weren't wearing the shades, but they were wearing the dark suits and fedoras, and their skin looked like mannequin-like, which leads me to believe that a high percentage of mostly these M.I.B.s are cyborgs, just like we saw in the movie Terminator years ago with actor Arnold Schwarzenegger, who was a one-time world champion bodybuilder as well as the governor of California at one time. And he played this character in the movie Terminator, and it was a cyborg. And I think a certain amount of these M.I.B.s that people say are like hairless, their skin looks plastic-like. Well, that's what I think what they are, is they're cyborgs. But anyway, I got to get going to work, and I just wanted to put this on record before, maybe I meet them again, or maybe I meet an unfortunately untimely demise. I hope that I don't. I don't want to leave my wife a widow. I don't want to leave my son without a father. But I wanted to put this on record that I found out through a source that I trust. The M.I.B. threatened then Senator John Glenn, who has since passed on. They wanted him to approve some official looking paperwork that these guys could have all limited access to anything, anywhere, anytime. And all they had to do is flash credentials. And whoever it was that was securing a certain area had to let these guys in. Now, these guys apparently were doing it all along anyway. Now they just weren't official, so in case they got caught, all they had to do is flash some credentials to make it a lot easier. So I don't know what these guys' clearance would have said. Like I said, the highest one I had ever heard about was 38 Rhyolite, and Phil Schneider had that, and of course they just come forward. There was nothing like that. I would have known. Do you think you're going to get a memo about everything? Geez, quit being so arrogant. These guys could have got a level like, maybe just say off the top of my head, level 40 ATS global, above top secret global means we can go anywhere we want anytime and no one can question us. Maybe that's what they got. I have no idea. But I want to put on record that I've finally found out what these M.I.B threatened John Glenn with back when he was a senator in the early mid-90s. They wanted him to sign off that these M.I.B guys could have all access to anything they wanted, anytime, any place, and no one could stand in their way. So who knows what they have access to and what they've done with it. Now, this was back in 93, so this was, 25, 26 years ago. So who knows what's happened since then. But I wanted to put this on record. For many years, I did not know what they threatened John Glenn with. Now I know. Now you know. This is Eric the Mind Control Guy signing off for my video, The M.I.B S are S.O.B S, Part 4. Thank you.